Hi, this is Bill Monroe of Project Portfolio Excellence Incorporated, and this is part 3 of the Implementing Project Portfolio Excellence series of videos. The title of this video is, There is Such a Thing as the Impossible. In part 1 of this series, we talked about the necessity of building an effective collaboration between IT and business, because software projects are just too complex for either side to be able to manage them effectively by themselves. Then in part 2 of the series, we talked about understanding your capacity, your constraints, and your capabilities so that you don't take on more work than you can effectively achieve with an acceptable level of quality. If you take these first 2 concepts to heart, then you're well on your way to Project Portfolio Excellence. In this video, I want to respond to some of the comments that I receive when I'm talking about Project Portfolio Excellence. In this discussion of the impossible, I want to start with truth number 3, which states it's absolutely impossible to make the impossible possible. It's very possible to make the possible impossible. Now here's what I mean by that. The realm of what we can accomplish is absolutely limited by our capabilities, our capacity, and our constraints. If we want to expand on that realm of what can be accomplished, we have to address one of those 3 factors. We can increase our capacity, we can improve our capabilities, or we can decrease our constraints. This is the only way that we can take what is impossible today and make it possible tomorrow. If we decide instead to go on and pursue a project that is beyond our constraints and capacity and capabilities, we could end up taking a project that could have been successful and turning it into a failure because we refuse to acknowledge our limitations. It's also important to note that these limitations we're talking about are not due to any particular methodology that we're using. There is no methodology that can allow you to do the impossible, and any methodology that claims that it can is lying to you. And the last truth that I want to talk about here pertaining to the impossible is truth number 45. Commands to achieve the impossible don't result in the impossible being achieved, and they usually hurt the company. When we get fixated on meeting an impossible date or including functionality that's just impossible, that's where we get into that situation where we may end up causing a project to fail that could have otherwise succeeded. So now I want to take some time to offer responses to some of the rebuttals that I receive about Project Portfolio Excellence. The first rebuttal that I receive is, well, nothing's impossible. This is kind of tied to the idea that you can get anything you want if you're willing to pay for it. Now, while that may be literally true, when it comes to projects, we're usually not willing to keep paying and paying and paying in order to meet some impossible goal. The example that I like to use in answering that statement is the example of the monkeys and typewriters. Now, you've probably heard the old adage that an infinite number of monkeys, given typewriters and an infinite amount of time, would eventually recreate the works of Shakespeare. The statement is usually made to support the idea that no matter how unlikely something is, there is some statistical probability that can be assigned to it. And I have no problem with that in and of itself. But when it comes to projects and project portfolio excellence, I'm not interested in simply whether or not a project has a probability for success. I'm interested in whether or not that probability is highly likely. And tying this back to the cost question, it may be true that you can get practically anything you want if you're willing to pay for it, but how would you like to have to foot the bill for correction fluid on the monkey project? The second rebuttal that I want to answer is, you never know what you can do until you try. And once again, I wouldn't argue the truth of that statement as it stands. But here's an idea that I offered in answer to that statement in a presentation that I made a while back. I asked the people in the room, is there anyone here who would jump off the top of a 10-story building for $1 million? There were no takers, so I upped the ante. Well, what about for $10 million or $100 million? What if Bill Gates was to come in here right now and offer $1 billion to anybody who would jump off the roof of a 10-story building? Still, no takers. So I said, well, what's wrong? You never know what you can do until you try. That got a little bit of a laugh, and I went on to say, there have been recorded instances of people falling from much greater heights than that and surviving. So it's not a matter that it's impossible, because it's happened to people before. And I went on to explain that what we were demonstrating wasn't statistical probability, it was risk tolerance. Everybody in the room understood that even though it's possible to survive a fall from 10 stories, the risk of not surviving is so great that it wasn't worth even $1 billion to anyone in the room. And taking that back to our earlier statement that you can get anything you want if you're willing to pay for it, what if what you wanted was to see a sane, rational person jump off the top of a 10-story building? Do you think that there's any amount of money that you could use to get that to happen? The next statement I want to answer to is one that I read. I haven't actually had anyone tell me this. You can't know your limits if you don't exceed them. Now, I like the message. I like the statement. I think it's inspirational. It's motivational. It could get folks to think about how they shouldn't hold themselves back. They should always be trying to achieve more, to stretch their boundaries. All of those things are good, but let's tie it back to the world of projects. I would use Project Portfolio Excellence Truth number 131 to answer that statement. If the results you're getting are of inferior quality, you are by definition exceeding your capacity for quality work. So in that respect, any company that's in that situation has already exceeded its limits. The real problem is that they never recognized what their limits were in the first place. And Project Portfolio Excellence is about recognizing your limitations, your capacity, your capabilities, your constraints, so that you don't waste time, money, and energy on projects that have little to no chance for success. The last statement that I want to answer to is one that I have heard many times, and it goes something like, well, sure, that sounds good, but that's just not the world that we live in. I put that answer in the same category as, well, we can't do it that way because that's not the way we do it. The graph on this slide you've seen many, many times, and it just serves to remind us that the way we've been executing projects for many years now is not getting us the results that we would like to get. You know whether or not that's true in your organization. And if it is true, you also know that if you continue to do things the way you've always done them in the past, you will continue to get results that are not satisfactory. Project Portfolio Excellence provides the tools, the techniques, the strategy, and methodology to allow you to analyze the results you're currently getting with your software and projects so that you can more proactively address the weaknesses inherent in your practices and get better results in the future. I also want to reiterate the model that I presented on the types of project failure. Just as you can take blue, green, and red and combine them together to come up with millions of colors, you can do the same thing with the three primary causes of project failure, which are lack of skill, lack of will, and lack of capacity. Don't get distracted by the noise. Don't accept that every flavor of project failure is a unique cause of project failure, because each of the millions of flavors of project failure are really just a manifestation of the three primary ingredients. When you develop the ability to look beyond the flavor of a particular failure and look at its constituent components, then the causes of project failure will become easy to diagnose, simple to understand, and straightforward to address. Also, over time, this type of analysis will make you more aware of your organizational strengths and weaknesses, your capacity, your constraints, your capabilities, and your limitations, so that you'll be able to do a better job in managing the overall portfolio of projects that you have in front of you. I want to thank you for taking the time to view these videos, especially if you've watched the How Quality Software Happens series in addition to these. I hope I've given you some new insights into how projects succeed and why they fail, and also I hope that I've inspired you to start taking a closer look at the results you're currently getting with software and projects with your company. As always, feel free to send me any questions and comments you have about the material. Keep visiting the website, checking the blog, and keep looking for new products from Project Portfolio Excellence Incorporated. Thank you.